Today's history lesson is something that I came across recently that I didn't know a lot about. In 1990, Sram sued Shimano, and it has changed the landscape of bicycles forever. Please, if you are enjoying these more history-oriented cycling videos, be sure you give them a thumbs up, you subscribe, and I completely apologize. I forgot my mic stand. So we're going handheld today. Let's do a quick backstory on both companies to kind of set the stage. Sram LLC was founded in 1987 and is based out of Chicago, Illinois. The name Sram is actually an acronym of founders Scott, Ray, and Sam, where Ray is the middle name of the company's first CEO, Stan Day. Stan Ray Day. SRAM were the inventors of the grip shift, and what solidified SRAM's place in the market was when they came out with grip shift for off-road use, and had a 1-to-1 cable pull ratio that was supposed to have more tolerance and work better than Shimano when the cables were dirty and grimy. As SRAM grew, they purchased Sachs, which were a big manufacturer of chains at the time. Then they proceeded to purchase multiple companies, RockShox, Avid, Truvative. Essentially, SRAM was trying to become a one-stop shop for bike manufacturers. Shimano, on the other hand, has a much more storied history, with their inception dating all the way back to 1921, when, and please, by all means, correct me on my pronunciations because I am god-awful with this. Shozaburo Shimano founded Shimano Ironworks and started producing freewheels for bicycles. Shimano opened Shimano America in 1965, almost 20 years before SRAM was even an idea. In 1970, the Shimano fishing line of products was officially introduced. Shimano quickly became the biggest supplier of components to bicycle manufacturers in the early 90s, with their walled garden approach to cycling that some considered bullying at the time, but I have always thought of as kind of standard business practice. Basically, if I have a Shimano shifter, you have to use a Shimano derailleur, for the most part. If you have been in or around cycling for more than a week, or fishing for that matter, I'm sure you know who Shimano is. They are one of the oldest and best manufacturers of bicycle components. Now let's quickly move on to the lawsuit. There is a great quote that I think really paints a picture of most of the bike industry. There are two different ways to run a business. One can focus on nuts and bolts, like making a good product and pricing it smartly. The second approach, use every weapon in the arsenal, including lawsuits and anti-dumping charges. In the early 90s, Shimano was one of the biggest manufacturers of OEM equipment, if not the biggest. OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer, meaning if you purchase a giant bike and what it comes with completely stock would be its OEM equipment. Around this time, Shimano came out with the idea of what they called total integration, meaning their new shifters would only work with their derailleurs, and if you purchased an entire group set for your bike, in theory, it should work better than if you had a hodgepodge of different components, i.e. Shimano chains are designed to be ran on Shimano cassettes. And for the most part, I tend to kind of agree with this, because if I have a Shimano cassette, and this is just anecdotal evidence, I usually go with a Shimano chain. If I have a SRAM cassette, I go with a SRAM chain. Now it's getting to the point that you kind of have to run these people's specific chains for their group sets, but you also have to think that if Shimano is designing a cassette, they are going to design a chain that is going to work best with their cassette. It's not like you're going to get a performance boost. There's no like wattage increase, but I would say that it does shift quieter when you use an appropriate chain with an appropriate manufacturer's cassette. Am I making sense? At the same time was when the new kid on the block arrived, SRAM. They started making waves in the component field, and SRAM was trying to break into the OEM market. The OEM market is so lucrative and vital for these companies because it guarantees that a big company like Giant, Trek, Specialized for instance, will purchase tons of their product to put on bicycles that they intend to sell. So, instead of marketing to consumers like you and I, these big component manufacturers are marketing instead to the big, complete bicycle brands. And that's why breaking into the OEM market is so vital for continued growth. This is also why these component companies try to become a one-stop shop for the manufacturers they are marketing towards. Think about it. Why would a derailleur manufacturer or a shifter manufacturer buy a company that makes cranks and that's it? Because they want Giant to come to them and buy components only from them. Now let's get back to the early 90s. Who do you think was the king of OEM parts on bicycles? There were more brands than just Shimano, but at that time, they were definitely ruling the playground, and Sram just wanted a piece of the pie. Sram's new grip shift had to make it to the OEM market, or Sram was going to fail, and Shimano didn't take kindly to them encroaching into the bicycle component turf. At that time, Sram was losing money hand over fist, and I think this was kind of their Hail Mary. They were either going to break into an OEM component manufacturer position, or they would probably have ended up shutting down. When Sram tried to start selling to some of these bicycle brands, Shimano enacted a policy where if you purchase Shimano products and Shimano products only, you would receive a hefty 10% discount they called a group pricing policy. This is pretty big because when you're talking about buying thousands and thousands of components, 10% discount is huge. Sram, along with others, could not compete at those prices, especially when Sram just had their $70 grip shift, and that was it. So they brought an antitrust suit in federal court in Santa Ana, California, near Shimano's US unit in nearby Irvine. Sram's basic claim was that Shimano was using unfair business practices to try and monopolize Shimano components. This trial did not get drug out. It did not last very long because in 1991, before the case could even go to trial, Shimano settled outside of court with Sram for an undisclosed amount. This was a huge victory for Sram, as this means now not only does Sram have the right to compete in the bicycle components industry, but so do tons of other companies. I mean, think about how this changed the industry forever. Sram sales went from literally zero OEM equipment in a single year to 300,000 units the next year. And now there are multiple component manufacturers being used on the bicycles that you purchase. This is why you can find a bike that will have Shimano brakes on it and a Sram drivetrain. The victory was a big deal for Sram and essentially saved the company. But the story of Sram versus Shimano I don't think will ever be quite over, as the two companies seem to be forever locked in a battle for supremacy. In 1996, Sram again sued Shimano for predatory pricing and was awarded $9 million. In 2003, Shimano won a patent infringement case against Sram in Germany. There was also a pricing war on internally geared hubs that led to an investigation from the European Union. And the list goes on. Now, I'm not even going to get into whether I believe Shimano is in the right or Sram is just sue happy, but I will say that I always think healthy competition brings an industry up as a whole. I am a fan of both Sram and Shimano. If I had my pick, I would run Sram shifters and derailleurs while running Shimano brakes, because I have had absolutely nothing but terrible experience with Avid and Sram brakes. Please, if you guys like Sram brakes, let me know in the comments below. I, on the other hand, am going to refrain from ever bleeding another set again if I can help it. I know this was a shorter one, but I wanted to put this case out there for you guys because I think it has big implications into how the bike industry was ran after that. Essentially what this case did was allow other companies to start competing against Shimano in a healthy way. You gotta remember, at the time, Sram was about this big and Shimano had the entire market. If Shimano wanted to bury them, I really think, especially at that time, they could have, because Sram was so small. Sram was so small. But Shimano decided to just not even go to trial. Let me know what you guys know about that time period. There's not a ton of information out on this court, especially because it was settled outside, but this was a big pivotal moment, especially for this American-based company that's out of Chicago. So what do you guys think about the Sram versus Shimano debate inside the courtroom and out? Do you prefer one brand over the other, or are you more indifferent like I am? Also, What do you think about this catastrophic Shimano crank ordeal? Oh my gosh, they're in deep with this. Anyways, I love you all. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you in the next dive into cycling history.